Hello Ergonauts and welcome back to the Ergo Summit. This is our next segment we have with ErgoLend, who will be joined by Chris Ray. I hope the summit's been going well for you so far, and this should be quite an exciting segment. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here. Glad to get out there and talk a little bit to the new community members and let people know what's going on with ErgoLend Exle.
Yeah, the community is growing at a rapid pace as well, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who will be new to this protocol. So I think the best thing to begin with would be to sort of get to grips with the protocol, to sort of understand the initiative and what Exle is, ErgoLend.
Okay, so Exle is a platform for lenders and borrowers to come together and utilize on-chain contracts or peer-to-peer lending. It's as simple as that. Basically, there are people that would take loans and people that would give loans, but finding each other, on the massive internet can be quite difficult. And so our platform is designed to bring people together, a point where everybody knows what is involved and educate them on best practices of how to utilize peer-to-peer lending contracts.
So how would this peer-to-peer lending sort of operate? Because of course there's no middleman, no central party to handle things for you. How would it occur in this environment?
There's a lot that goes into this. The way that our platform, our project is designed, it's not just to bring people together in the platform, but also to bring people together as a community of borrowers, a community of lenders. And so there's a huge social aspect of how this is supposed to work. It doesn't necessarily have to work that way. There are apps, lending apps in the world that people can just log into their app, make loans, or request for a loan without any interaction between people. But ideally, I think that the best lending options for what we're trying to accomplish for microfinance is if people come together and get to know each other and create relationships that can withstand time, right? And so, so I recommend people get into side channels, ErgoLend or Exle social channels, and talk to borrowers, talk to people that might be prospective lenders. Not too many people have really come out and portrayed themselves as a lender yet, but we're still in infancy of community growth for the platform. So, how it works. After a lender and a borrower come together, the borrower can direct the lender to the contracts on the platform that they're requesting a loan. They've set the rates for, and they can negotiate, in DMs or, private messages, and maybe negotiate a little bit. And in those channels, can also create side contracts, personal contracts, right, that are not on chain. And this is a peer-to-peer approach. So, for instance, if I was requesting a loan from you, or requesting a loan, and you said, "Hey, I'm going to fill your loan, but there are a couple things that I need clarity on. How can I ensure that I'm going to make payments? And if I default, how will I cover my default? Or what's going to hold me responsible, right? Um, well, let's just say hypothetically, this is something that I'm working on, where there's a person in the U.S. I'm working with now, talking, that is willing to give me all of their personal information and give me some collateral that is not on chain, right? They're not going to be able to tokenize their assets. That's a whole different process. But between the two of us, we can create a legal contract peer to peer and utilize the on chain contracts to start to develop that kind of a reputation for them, so that when they repay that loan, other people can see that and see that they're beginning to build a credit history, so to speak. And so that's kind of how I envision it working best, just introducing the social aspect. And it does get difficult as we work around the globe, but that is how I see it working. And it's working right now. So we're not using the contracts on chain, but that social aspect is working.
So there's a lot of emphasis on this social side of things. Is it a case of coming into one of these side channels and asking for a loan, or is there an algorithmic side to it as well? If you know what I
What do you
mean.
mean an algorithmic side to it?
So is it the case where people would request for a loan and it'd only be that, or could it be completely autonomous at the same time?
Um,
So I could I could engage with the DApp, click on the button, and receive a loan like that, an uncollateralized one as well.
no, so is how it works very clearly is a borrower would create a loan proposal or a request for a loan, and within the UI, um, that will be displayed to anybody that uses our site, right? Um, and they'll be able to fill in a story, what they're going to use the loan for. Maybe they can add some information, direct them to other links for proof of what they need the loan for, maybe to links to personal information, that would help somebody have an assurance that this is a real loan request. And a lender can click on that and fill it if they like, right? But the ideal situation would be each loan has a social contact of some kind that a lender can reach out to the borrower and discuss the loan with them, begin to build a relationship. And relationships in lending have been around for a long time. You might know that some borrowers in the world have a very strong relationship with a bank, right? Traditional finance. And these relationships last years, if not lifetime. And with these relationships, it empowers borrowers to have an assurance that they'll continue to have a cash flow to meet the needs of their life, for years to come. And I think that these kind of relationships can be done. And so in the DApp, I would say that it's best to have some kind of social contact of who you are, as a borrower. So it wouldn't be algorithmic. It would be, there's a little bit of work that goes into it, but um, I really like the structure of it. So there's an application that I've used since 2018 called kiva.org. And that allows crowdfunding to do the same thing that we're doing. Okay. Except for this crowdfunding doesn't necessarily give the crowd any return on interest. It doesn't really give them a lot of access to the borrowers. And so the relationship is basically a relationship. I almost feel like it's a one-sided relationship. Somebody has trust in Kiva.org to do what they say that they're doing, which is creating microfinance possibilities in developing countries and well, all over, to micro loans, right? But the lender, you're only going to make that loan once, right, to one person, and then you can't really follow the borrower because the borrower has a relationship with other third parties between Kiva uh, and themselves. Usually, that's another financial institution, and so there's middlemen involved. Middlemen in these situations generally charge the borrower a an interest rate. I don't know what those are because that would be a lot of hunting down research, right? And there is averages, known averages, but um, you're not building a relationship with borrowers, with people. You're building relationships with the third party in between. So yeah, it's we've got a heck of a task in front of us, showing people how to use this and how to make it successful. So it's gonna be a long road. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, the power in democratizing the whole process sort of speaks for itself. Do you guys have some big goals, some tangible prospects as Exle ErgoLend grows?
Yeah, there are some big goals. In general, I try not to focus on the bigger picture because right now, still in infancy, um, where we have developed a community of borrowers and also lenders. I think that we have to prove ourselves to be able to make this work around the world. I use the demonstration of the contact that I have here in the U.S. For me, that's ideal to work locally and make loans locally and be able to create legal contracts with these people in side channels. But this is going to become more difficult for me personally to build legal contracts in other nations, right? And so part of our goals would be to show the first steps of my goals in expanding and making this a very successful project is to attract other, I would say maybe project managers in other countries that would also be able to create legal contracts in those countries so that they have um, there's a higher assurance of repayment. And I say this is like one of my goals because there's been a lot of skepticism about how uncollateralized loans will work. I generally think that people are good and people want to repay their debts for the most part. Um, and so there may be some costs that, that come with making loans where you do run into a default. But generally, I think over time, the project will be successful and the borrowers, lenders, it's going to be a win-win situation if we can expand and have project managers in other countries that can make legal contracts and take people into court if needed in their local jurisdictions to recoup costs if that's something they feel they need to do. People do need to be held accountable. And with uncollateralized loans, as we're doing with Exle, it's hard to keep people accountable.
So, skepticism aside, what brings you to Ergo to push forward this idea versus other decentralized protocols?
Yeah, so 2018, I got involved with Cardano, and the the freedom of development in the decentralized space was as attractive to me as Bitcoin was in 2011. Um, over several years, there was always this idea of how to build out a lending platform on crypto on a blockchain. The beginning of that was my friend showed me 2018 how to utilize the Kiva platform as a community and make loans to people all over the world. And so there was several of us. That Cardano community lending team has grown. Um, but early last year, I found Ergo. I dived into Ergo. I wanted to develop. Cardano was a little bit too much for me. It was probably a little too complicated. Learning Haskell uh, seemed like a daunting task. I'm familiar with several programmers that are building on that blockchain. So I wanted to learn Rust. I started to dig into learn where I could apply Rust in blockchain development. And I found Scala, I found Ergo, all in this research. Um, and I, Ergo just embodies everything that I feel like I believe in, with decentralized, permissionless, programmable smart contracts. This is programmable smart contracts is not something that I'm unfamiliar with or was unfamiliar with at the time, because that was something that I was looking at on Cardano. And so yeah, I got involved in researching, understanding Ergo, and it just became my whole focus. Just the freedom of being able to create tools or use tools that are, for the most part, permissionless. DApps are decentralized, and so this it fit checked all the boxes, and um, I got very active in the community and got to know a lot of the community members. I missed Ergo Hack 1, but I watched it closely, and it was really cool to see how developers worked and competed, but also not competed, supported each other. And so when Ergo Hack 2 started to come up last year in October, I believe, I wanted to be a part of it so dang bad. And so I took this idea that I'd been involved in 2008, since 2018, and just requested for somebody to join me and build these tools on Ergo, at least hack it out. And so, yeah, that's where the start came from, was Ergo Hack 2. Um,
Yeah,
Go
we're
ahead.
starting to see we're seeing a lot come out of the Ergo hacks. They're very successful. You mentioned about the permissionless side of things with Ergo, and you emphasised how the peer-to-peer lending is going to be able to facilitate participants across the world. So would it be right to assume that there is sort of an emphasis on the unbanked in this matter?
Yeah, so the unbanked is, pushing power to the edges, the power of finance, basically power of liberty and freedoms to the edges of of our social structures. I think you come across these people that aren't able to participate in most of the uh, most of the financial infrastructure in the world, because they're not banked, they're unbanked, they don't have a bank account. Maybe if they do, they don't have a means of leveraging any property, um, of any type, or leveraging, uh, maybe their careers, or their work, and that might have something to do with their positions in some undeveloped countries where they don't have secured identities, or they don't have a very strong or well built social structure where when you're employed, you have a record of employment and these things that we have in uh, you, the US where I'm at. I can take my whole work history and I can leverage that in a sense to participate in some financial contracts. People don't have that in some areas of the world. And so, yeah, we do have an emphasis on the unbanked, um, although it's not the only place that this can be utilized. It is a focus of, of my work, what I'm doing, what I'm pushing forward for, because I feel like as we progress in society, if we don't stop and try to build up these unbanked areas, we're kind of leaving people behind as we progress, right? With technology and just everything that we're working for and toward as a society.
Hmm. And one problem with people in this category, as is the same case of work history, would be credit history, wouldn't it? Could Excel facilitate this matter in any way? How would people with a poor credit history, or none at all, be able to happily use the protocol?
So we're actually working on that right now as a demonstration of kind of like a social underwriting, um, not in the sense of how it might be used in, say, the US, but the unbanked do actually have a form of a credit history, right? And that form of credit history comes from their community. Um, and so when you're in a tight community, everybody gets familiar with each other or familiar with how another person operates over years, right? And very familiar and build social trust with each other. And so with even if you're unbanked and you don't have this digital credit history, you can still have a strong social credit history, right? And so we're seeking to utilize this, which is it's used around the world. Communities support each other around the world. They know each other around the world. And so um, this social underwriting is basically leveraging that social trust to gain access to the blockchain contracts that we're building and gain access to finances. And it, for example, yeah, in one case uh, of our loans that we just barely funded in the last 2 weeks is one person that I trust that I sponsored and I'm backing that loan up, but that person that I trust trusts another person. And so they went through the process of receiving the cryptocurrency, ERGs, to uh, what is it? Exchanging them for Kenya shillings and then giving them the Kenya shillings to this other person. And this other person is unbanked for the most part. And so we're utilizing the social trust. We're going to leverage what we all know is real. We all use it in our daily lives almost. If you're driving down the highway, 2-lane highway, at 70 miles an hour, you've got some kind of trust for that person on the other side of the road that they're not going to smash into you, you know? And this is kind of how I look at it is people don't think about the trust that they do put into society um, as much as they trust other people. It's something that they don't really think about. So that 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 is going to empower a lot of people, I believe. Um, the two loans that we made already are already being set as examples to others how they can also participate. and benefit from Exle. And so really looking forward to the next couple months as it builds out a little bit stronger. And we've got a lot of things coming. So we'll, we'll, uh, we'll definitely have updates over the next year on how this really empowers the unbanked and how they leverage their social trust to participate.
So thinking about the components that make up Excel to allow all this magic to sort of go on, I've noticed you guys got a DAO set up. Maybe you could tell me more about that.
Yeah, so the DAO is basically to prevent, um, centralized corruption. Being a strong supporter of Bitcoin and Cardano and Ergo, and leading up over the years to where I'm at, I thought it was a really good idea to decentralize this tool, this powerful tool that can actually reach the unbanked. Um, to have a central authority, even myself, I mean, even myself, to have a central authority controlling such a powerful tool, it just seemed wrong to me. Um, and so setting up this DAO became quite important. And everyone on the team agreed with me that, yeah, it's a great idea. It pushes, uh, it allows for expansion. Other people contribute, people that have different experiences and ideas than us, and they might see a better way to advance this tool in a decentralized manner. And so, yeah, the DAO's definitely in progress, but it is exciting as we do see contributors in our channels and supporters. And, this is also not something that happens overnight. Um, we distributed the DAO governance tokens in May. And so I think we kind of surprised everybody with this, create a DAO, decentralize it. But this is our goal, is to have, um, you know, decentralized open tools so that it, the impact of our project is greater, right? In a DAO setting, I think that with 100 participants or contributors working towards the same mission of pushing power to the edges and banking the unbanked, you'll have a greater impact than just 5 or 10 people. So it is quite exciting.
It does just go to illustrate how far DAOs can really go. I was wondering, you're talking about tools and whatnot. Could the DAO itself be a tool for underwriting these loans?
Um, there's some research to be done on that. I think that it can be for, in some way, contributors to the DAO will be most focused or familiar with some of the participants, some of the lenders, some of the borrowers. And so I think that the DAO will be able to help guide some of the development in um, communications, social interactions, how to uh, address maybe forgiveness. It's one of the things with a loan that I would like to see, is that with you're lending to somebody that has no collateral, maybe it would be good to have no expectation of being repaid, because the cause that they're borrowing for is great enough to meet like a charity need, or yeah, it could meet the requirements of charity. And so if somebody was to loan for charity, then it would be nice to see forgiveness involved in that. And I think um, that's something that it would help to have other people think about, right? Um, but As an underwriter, the DAO itself isn't making like uh, financial loans, right? The program project Exle is not a finance company. We're just creating a hub for everybody to come together. And so as a contributor, I think that I did already social underwrite the two loans because people that I'm familiar with trust me. I had 18 people join me in funding these two loans. And these two loans come out to the amount of $5,500 US dollars. And I think that alone is like a demonstration of social underwriting. I feel like I have a lot to lose as um, you know, large driver of Exle. And so I think other people know I have a lot to do. Uh, as a member of our community, I would hate to fall into default with people that I asked to join, so yeah, I think that the DAO itself can it can go in so many different directions right now. Um, a lot of DAOs do have different focuses with or departments that have different focuses on the same mission, and so it's possible that um, a department inside the DAO does find a way to utilize the DAO's weight to underwrite some loans, maybe sponsor projects in other countries or different places around the world. It's possible.
And with the expansion that you're presenting, and with these social sides and the possibility of there being a default, could there be financial tools brought into Exle to, I don't know, make it more than just a P2P lending platform?
Yeah, I think there's many ways to bring in tools. And this is a question that I was asked from Denisio, who's been helping build out the community side in Kenya. He asked me how could we integrate with M-Pesa. M-Pesa is a banking platform there in Kenya. And this is a traditional finance banking platform. I think that plugging into the existing structure is probably a good idea. What we're doing or what we've done peer to peer removes a lot of middlemen, right? And so if we can make the process seamless for a borrower and lender by integrating financial tooling, then definitely going to attempt to. There's a lot of examples of people doing the same thing in integrating tools that are really beneficial to projects. It's just not my focus right now. And also, I mean, maybe that's a position that somebody else could fill from the DAO. Somebody that has experience, somebody that can make it happen quicker. It seems like it would be a lot of work to incorporate, say, a legacy institution tooling, but within our own ecosystem, there's several ways that somebody could plug into Exle. For example, a community pool, right? Community run, maybe their own little DAO, right? A smaller DAO that creates a fund for lending, and this DAO chooses who they lend to, but they are able to create more impact as a pool of lenders, and they can, in my opinion, create great returns for them as they develop relationships. So this idea of a community pool could definitely be plugged in. and that's a different financial idea. Yes, and there's other projects that could plug into Exle also. On Cardano, I follow closely their DAO development, and there's a DAO called Scat DAO, and they do audits. Their thing is to audit smart contracts, right? And so they encourage me to consider how to audit maybe the loan proposals that come through, where they come from, and this kind of a audit might help lenders have more assurance that these specific loans passed audit, and the lender could be willing to pay for a service like that. So there's a lot of imagination that can go into what can be plugged in, but what will be plugged in is interesting. It's to be seen.
I guess these people that are spinning off their own lending pools and whatnot sort of resembles a mutual credit society in some sense.
Yeah, it could be done like that. I think it's interesting to see where this can go. If it's a mutual credit society, maybe they can make permissionless loans to maybe specific projects or organizations. And so for example, we have a lot of dApps in development in our ecosystem, and a lot of trusted individuals. What if you just tell them, hey, we'll just give you an open line of credit, and those people, they just submit for a loan instead of waiting around. They can be granted it quickly. You never know. We'll see.
And to finish up with, you've mentioned a lot about a lot of work in Kenya, and in your light paper for Exle, you mentioned about collaborating with communities in Nigeria and Kenya in real life. I don't know if you could inform us of some more of what's gone on there.
Well, yeah. So my contact in Nigeria, we just had a discussion the other day, and his projects, he pulled back a little bit and started working on his focuses in Nigeria, and we're still in contact. He's let me know that he's kind of in a position to where if we need any kind of development, he would be willing to help us out, right? I think that's going to be explored here in the next month or two. I didn't know that they got to a point in their development. I'm talking about ABCD, their blockchain education center, and they teach developers. I didn't know they were to a point that they can now source developers, but I'm excited to see that. I think that over time, as we prove in Kenya that our social structures of integrating or using the platform works, and people get repayments, I think that I'll explore more in Nigeria. I'll push them a little bit more to get a little bit more involved.
Well, Ergonauts, that has been Exle. Thank you for coming on. I think it'd be a great contribution to the summit, and I can't wait to see the protocol grow even more so.
Glad to get out there and talk a little bit to the new community members and let people know what's going on with ErgoLend and Exle.